Hi, Simon Dixon here, founder of banktothefuture.com. I'm here reporting from the Institute for Social Banking, and I'm here with Mark Campanale, who's the director of the Social Stock Exchange. So, Mark, what is the Social Stock Exchange?
Well, it's like any other investment exchange like NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, but it's been specifically designed to enable social ventures to raise typically equity risk finance. So it's a capital market, it's an investment exchange, but only wholly focused on businesses that create social or environmental value.
Okay, and what inspired you to start a social stock exchange?
Well, I was looking at many social ventures that are trying to raise money in the city, or existing enterprises that have listed doing interesting things like organic food, or running daycare centers for children, or one that I found even runs a children's theater that had raised the money they needed to grow their business by listing their shares on a stock exchange. But social investors weren't finding them. So this new exchange will aggregate together social ventures from around the world that have already gone public or are interested in raising money through a public market to create one platform through which people interested in social investment can find investments for their pension plan and for their savings account.
Okay, so a company that's already gone public, will they be looking at some secondary funding with you?
Yeah, you can do a dual listing. So we've already been approached by a number of businesses that people have probably never heard of, but if the public knew about them, they'd think, wow, I'd love that company. So just recently, we were approached by an educational business in India that looked very interesting, and I've seen a renewable energy business focused on the Philippines, Senegal, and India that's listed on an exchange in Canada. All businesses that at first look, I think, wow, this is interesting. If we clustered a group of them together, then would raise the profile of the sector.
Excellent. Well, earlier in your presentation, you gave an interesting story about Innocent. Very recently, I was with Richard Reed, the founder of Innocent, and he was telling me the account and the story of how valuable it was when he needed the funds with Coca-Cola. I was wondering if you could share what you were sharing about Innocent and Coca-Cola.
Well, my understanding, and it's taken from a Financial Times article where he was quoted, was that they went around the city and the conventional private equity houses, and they didn't understand the fact that the Innocent gives 10% of their profits to charity. They felt that this wasn't a thing that an ordinary business could do. And what you saw was a real sort of values and culture clash between the story of what Innocent is trying to create as a socially or mission-driven business and the needs of the owners of capital. But then if you ask the public, their feeling of a business like Innocent, it's a very strong brand. The public appreciate what they're trying to do. It's a good feeling about the objectives of the company, and everything you read about how they run their business. It's a kind of enterprise any social investor will be happy to finance. It's just a shame that that the investment institutions looking after the endowments of the public and charities and so on didn't feel that it was the kind of business they could have financed. So in the future, we want to create capital markets for people like Innocent, where maybe, I'm not saying that Coca-Cola is a bad deal, but to give them more choices about where they could have taken the money from.
Okay, and what kind of money are we talking about here?
Well, citizens, our money. Yeah. So we've got to create a capital market where everyone can participate.
And in terms of figures?
Well, the average raise on our exchange, we believe is going to be somewhere between 3 and 5 million. It sounds a lot, but in city terms, it's tiny. It's tiny. And if we're doing, so as one business, which is an educational business that raised money recently to work with schools under the public system, they raised £1 million. Now, they probably got that from half a dozen institutions, but £1 million, you could have 10,000 people, doing £10,000 each, or a greater number. We want to make it as simple and as transparent as possible for the public to participate in community share issues, like they would do, like the privatisation here in the UK of British Gas. With the RCID, we want to popularise this so that the public can raise money for their local community renewables or whatever it might be, and to do it in a way that they can use their conventional accounts and brokers and so on.
Okay, well finally, I'd love to just get your perspective on something maybe a bit pre-IPO.
Okay.
What do you think of the new technological innovations like crowdfunding, person-to-person lending? How do they play?
They're all good. The challenge you're going to find is primarily a regulatory one. Is that if you issue a prospectus and you send it to the public to raise money, there are real conditions around financial promotion. And if you were to then knock on the door to a bunch of people and say, buy this share issue, this is a regulated activity. And the problem with crowdsourcing is the regulatory framework isn't quite clear. Are you asking for a donation? You're not regulated, okay? If you're asking for an investment, then it falls under the Financial Promotions Act. And you better watch out, and you better have your lawyers looking at what you do, otherwise you're going to get the slappy bottom and you might end up in jail. Okay,
and do you see yourself doing some kind of partnerships with the social banks and the social bank movement?
I even see myself doing a partnership with the crowdsourcing.
Yeah?
Because if we have a bank, a social bank, bringing a share issue, and the document is regulated, then there may be a place for crowdsourcing to say, look, this thing is happening, you get the prospectus, which is a legal document, you can only get it by ringing this bank, and it all goes through a proper process. So we have to find ways of linking the two, and I'd love to do something like that.
Okay, well, we're obviously launching a crowdfunding platform in November, and I'd love to discuss that with you.
Great.
Thank you for your time, it's been great.
Not at all.